And what did you do, Officer Hayes?
So we immediately, proceed to the location. Um, so as we're going to the location, that's when we start getting background information on the actual health and wellness call.
What background information were you receiving?
We were receiving information on Ms. Patel, and about how she was missing, and basically checking up on this area. The area which we were checking happened to be a known drug house in the area, so we kind of proceeded with caution, and that's when we started to receive other information about the residents being watched.
Okay. Did you make it to 1117 Betterton Circle?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you make contact with anyone there?
Yes.
Who did you make contact with?
Two brothers. One was Octavius Brown, another one was William Brown.
And did you have an opportunity to talk to either of the Brown brothers?
Yes.
Okay. And in that discussion with the Brown brothers, what did y'all talk about?
So the first discussion that I had was with, I believe, it was either William or Octavius. I can't really recall right now, but that discussion was about Ms. Botello. I showed him the picture. So let me give you a rewind. So as we go to the house, he's kind of talking to me through the door. So he steps out. So I show him the picture. I'm like, "Have you seen this young woman? We're searching for this young woman right now." And that's when he made reference to saying that he saw this young lady 2 weeks ago over at the Shell gas station. And that's when I said, "No, that's impossible, because she hasn't been here for that long at the moment." That's when his brother intervened, and he started to tell us about about her being over at the Mustang Inn. So had a little short discussion about that. And as we're leaving the residence, I looked to my right, because there's a big lot over next door to the house. So there were 3 individuals that were in that lot. There was a Shelly Smith, a Melinda Smith, and I believe a Mr. Escobedo. So I asked them the same question. I said, "Hey, have you seen this young lady?" And they were like, "We possibly saw her, we saw her." And I'm like, "Have you seen her, or have you not seen her?" And that's when they're like, "Yeah, we saw her." And I said, "Okay." And they told me she likes to hang out at the Mustang Inn as well. So from there, that's when we proceeded to the Mustang Inn. As we're at the Mustang Inn, I encountered Miss Smith and Mr. Escobedo again. And I asked them a follow-up question one more time. "Have you seen this young lady?" And they're like, "Well, I think she likes to hang out at the City Inn, which is not too far from the Mustang Inn." So I said, "Okay, we'll proceed over there." Once we got to the City Inn, I noticed that they had a security officer over there.
Did you make contact with that security
Yes.
guard? Okay.
Yes.
And who was that security guard?
Security officer's name was a Mr. Floyd Mitchell.
Okay, and let me stop you for a moment,
Mhm.
Officer Hayes. Back in October of 2020, were you issued a body camera?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you have the body camera on you on this date?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Was the body camera activated when you made contact with these various witnesses?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you met with a Floyd Mitchell, who was the security officer at the City Inn.
Correct.
Okay. And when you talked to Mr. Mitchell, did you activate your body camera?
Yes.
Okay. So when you talked to Mr. Mitchell, what did you ask him?
Pretty much the same questions that I asked everyone else. "Have you seen this young woman? She's been missing, and do you have any information?"
Did you have a picture or anything to show Mr. Mitchell?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you show Mr. Mitchell this picture?
Yes.
What did Mr. Mitchell do and say when you showed him the picture?
He said he recognized her, he saw her. Said that he saw her the night previously.
So that would have been October 12th?
Somewhere around there. Yep.
Okay. And what did you do next?
That's when I asked Mr. Mitchell, was it possible if we could, search the motel. The motel in the City Inn is set up in tiers, so it's not just like you go in here and it's like a one floor type of thing. It's set up in tiers. So we proceeded to, search the knock on knock on the hotel motel door, excuse me, to see and ask residents if they saw this young woman, which no one did. So when we get down to the like it's like a little, like a vestibule type of entry area. I asked Mr. Mitchell, can we, possibly speak to the manager? Manager had no recollection of this young woman being there. So I'm like, okay. And then from there, we got a little bit more information from Mr. Mitchell saying that, she left that location and went down to the Valero gas station, which isn't too far from the city end.
Did you, well, before we get to Valero, when Mr. Mitchell told you he saw her, did he appear to be credible in his belief that he saw her there the night before?
Yes.
And what do you base that upon?
I just based it off of, how he was giving me information. One, he was very clear, very adamant that he saw her. Also, as a security guard, he sees a lot of people going in and out. So when I showed him the picture, I was pretty sure that, he possibly saw her.
Okay. So then you went to the Valero based off of what Mr. Mitchell told you?
Correct.
Okay. And what happened when you got to the Valero gas station? And is this the Valero gas station located at 300 South Marsalis Avenue?
Correct.
Okay.
So we go inside the Valero, talk to a couple of the workers at the Valero, asked them have they seen this woman. They said no. So after we got that information, we walked outside. There was a couple of homeless people that like to hang out over there. So naturally I went over there and asked them because, they see pretty much everything and they had no recollection of seeing her at that location as well.
Okay. But you showed everyone a picture of her? Okay. You'll have to say yes or no.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay. And basically it sounds to me, Officer Hayes, is that you were following up, doing your job, following up with each lead that you had in trying to find Maricela Mateo.
Correct.
Okay. Now, the body cam video that you had on and that you activated during these encounters with the witnesses, including Mr. Mitchell, what's the process once your shift is over? What do you do with that body cam video? So
immediately after our shift is over, if we're not using it for reference for reports, we dock our body cam right in. There's a docking area at every one of the stations. So as soon as you are done with your shift, you're in the tour, you go ahead and you dock your body camera.
And what does it mean when you dock your body camera?
Dock your body camera means that you load it up in a specific area so that information is processed through the accident.
Okay. And the detective assigned to this case would have received your body cam videos?
Correct.
We passed the witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination. Yes, Your Honor. Officer Hayes, how long have you been a police officer again? I'm sorry.
A little over 5 years.
Okay, and at this time you were just on patrol and you said in, is it Beat 7?
Channel 7.
Channel 7.
Yes.
Okay, what area is that?
That's South Oak Cliff.
Okay, and now you work down in Deep Ellum, is that right?
Correct.
What do you do down in Deep Ellum?
I'm part of the Deep Ellum Task Force.
Okay, and as part of the Deep Ellum Task Force, are you guys just, I guess, having more presence, more police presence down in that location?
Correct.
And you work 6 p.m. to, what's your shift?
So my shift is Thursday through Saturday, 6 p.m. through 4 a.m. On Sunday, we come in at 4 p.m. and we're off at 2 a.m.
Okay, and Deep Ellum, I mean, it's known for a lot of bars and restaurants and things of that nature.
Correct.
And in fact, they're kind of, I guess, making an attempt, and Dallas is making an attempt, because that's a very, very popular hangout location to, one, increase security, and also, I guess, have new businesses and bars and things like that.
Correct.
Okay, make it a more enjoyable experience for everybody, a safer experience, all of those things. Okay. Now, at this time, you were working down in South Oak Cliff, is that right?
Correct.
And when you got a call for a welfare check, that wasn't from an individual, like the Brown brothers didn't call you out there for a welfare check?
No, ma'am.
In fact, several officers were sent out, responding officers, patrol officers like yourself, to just check various locations that maybe a young person might go to if they just didn't want to go home.
Correct.
Okay. And this is one of those areas that you just went and checked,
Correct.
at the direction of a sergeant.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, you stated that the original location that you checked, that's a no drug house, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that made you kind of proceed with a little bit of caution.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Willie Brown and Orlando Brown, they, one of the brothers, and you're not sure which one, came out and talked to you for a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall them saying that this person was, that they saw, was hanging out and had asked for $2?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you knew that, again, you knew this was to be a drug house, a place known for people coming up and purchasing drugs from that location, right?
Yes.
Okay. And at that point, you showed the picture, and were they 100% certain or just kind of certain that they saw her?
They were certain.
Okay. And Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Stage 3, is this the photograph that you showed him?
Yes.
Okay. And in that photograph, this individual, Maricela Vitello, she's wearing like a purple dress, right?
Correct.
And it looks like a common dress you might see a young lady of that size and stature wearing down in Deep Ellum, right?
Correct.
Okay. And to be fair, the area that you are searching in these hotels, the City Inn, the Mustang Inn, I mean, they're known for prostitution and drugs and things of that nature, right?
Correct.
Did you have any background information about Maricela other than the fact that she was supposed to go back to Seattle?
No, no background information. All the information that we received was on our way to that call.
Okay, so it's just a photograph and that she was supposed to be back in Seattle on the 5th and she didn't show up.
Correct.
Okay, so you didn't know that she had a family waiting for her back at home.
Absolutely not.
You didn't know that she had a stable home life.
No.
You didn't know that she more than likely had to go to work as an assistant manager of the Charlotte Russe in Seattle on Tuesday.
No.
You didn't know that she had several family or friends in Seattle that were very concerned about the fact that her social media and her phone contact had completely stopped.
Correct.
You didn't know that she had a bank account full of money.
No.
A person with a bank account full of money doesn't need to borrow $2, do they?
Sure don't. No.
This area, the City Inn and the Mustang Inn, like you said, I mean, it's known for prostitution and drugs and things of that nature.
Correct.
The person that I just described to you, that background information, does that sound like a person that is going to be hanging out in that area?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
I'm showing you it's been marked States Exhibit 396 and 397. Are those photographs of both the City Inn and the Mustang Inn?
This is the City Inn right here. Right here looks like an updated version of the Mustang Inn, but yes.
Okay. And States 396, that's the one that's the City Inn, and the 397 is the Mustang Inn, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you said an updated version. Does that look like it has had a paint job since you went out there?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, State moves to admit States 396 and 397 for all purposes. Tendering to Defense Counsel.
No objection.
All right, State's Exhibits 396 and 397 are admitted for all purposes.
Permission to publish, Your Honor.
You may.
It states 396, this is the City Inn, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that's just located, is it just right off of 67? Or is it
No,
35?
35.
35, right before 35 and 67 split?
Correct.
Okay. And this is the Mustang Inn, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is that near that same location?
Up the street, yes, ma'am.
Up the street? Okay. So we're not talking about a nice hotel, you know, a Hilton or a Marriott or anything like that.
No, ma'am.
And for a person that's never been to Dallas, it seems like that would be a very unusual place to go spend your time.
Correct.
The people that you talk to, I mean, they're trying to help, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you been out on calls like this where you're just trying to locate somebody?
Yes, ma'am.
And, I mean, it's common for people to give tips that just don't pan out, right?
Correct.
And you never talk to these people about, hey, this girl's name is, you know, did you, let me back up. You never asked these people, did you talk to her? Did you ask her about her background? Did you ask her where she was from? You didn't have that conversation with these
No, ma'am.
individuals.
No, ma'am.
And of the people that may have seen her, the Brown brothers that live in that drug house said, yeah, we think we saw her. And then Floyd Mitchell, who works security, right?
Correct.
And it's fair to say that there's a large population of 5 foot tall, early 20s, Hispanic female, about 100 pounds. I mean, that demographic is quite common.
Correct.
And a vast majority of those have long dark hair.
Correct.
And it's quite possible that these individuals just trying to help didn't see Maricela Botello, but saw someone very like her.
Correct.
That's the witness.
Redirect, Your Honor.
You may.
But that didn't keep you from doing your job, which was to follow up on these leads, because you didn't know about Maricela's background, correct?
Correct.
You didn't know that a week earlier, she left the Deep Ellum area with some man she did not know to go do drugs.
Correct.
Okay, and let me ask you this about people using drugs and then also people being forced into possible human trafficking. It's not unusual for people from all different backgrounds for that to happen to. Okay, and when these things happen, they're not going to be at the Omni Hotel, usually, correct?
Correct.
You're gonna find them in the more seedier parts of town.
Yes.
Okay. But you didn't know anything that led up to Maricela's disappearance. All you knew was that this was a wellness check, health and safety.
Health and wellness.
Health and wellness check, and you were following up doing your job.
Correct.
Okay. And you did your job properly.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
No further questions, Your Honor.
May this witness be found excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
No objection from the state.
Thank you, sir. You're free to leave and go about your business.
Thank you.
Thank you. Call your next witness.
We call Floyd Mitchell, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, sir. If you would please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Okay, Mr. Mitchell, will you please state your name?
Floyd Mitchell,
Okay. And Mr. Mitchell, back in October of 2020, what did you do for a living?
security,
Where did you work security at?
the front gate,
Where?
at City Inn.
Okay. And where is City Inn located?
It was 35 in Eden.
Okay. And is that in Dallas?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what type of motel is City Inn?
Yeah, it's a tough motel.
It's a what?
It's kind of a drug motel.
It's a drug motel.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Now, Mr. Mitchell, on October 13th, 2020, do you remember talking to a Dallas police officer about a missing person?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what do you remember about that?
I just told him I had seen him around that day,
Around which day?
12, something like that. I think it was.
Around October 12th, 2020? Did the police officer show you a picture?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and, in the picture, may I approach?
You may.
Mr. Mitchell, is this the picture that you remember the police officer showing you
Yeah,
on the 13th?
yeah.
Okay. And when the officer asked you if you had seen this young lady, what did you tell the officer?
I had seen at that date when she came through the building.
And were you for sure, were you adamant that you had seen her?
Yeah, I seen her, but I won't, I seen her that day, but that's the only time I ever seen her.
That's the only time you ever saw her?
Yeah.
Okay, and what hours did you work back then, Mr. Mitchell?
10 in the evening to 5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Did you tell, the officer anything else about this young lady?
No,
Okay. You don't remember telling the officer that you saw her walking towards Valero gas station?
oh, yeah, I did.
Okay. And I understand this was about 3 years,
Yeah, I know.
quite a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay. So you do remember telling the officer you saw her going to Valero gas station?
Uh-huh,
But this was the first and the last time you ever saw her?
yeah.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Briefly, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Mitchell. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good. Thank you for being here. I just had a few questions about your interaction with this person that you saw, okay? And a little bit about your time at the City Inn, okay?
Okay.
You described this as a drug hotel, is that correct? Or a drug motel?
Yeah,
And you have a lot of traffic in and out of there, is that right?
yeah,
Okay, you have a lot of different individuals that come in on a day-to-day basis.
yeah.
Over the course of just say a month in October, I mean, you may have hundreds of different individuals that you're seeing walking around the City Inn, coming in, checking in, things like that. It's also known for prostitution and things like that.
Yeah,
Okay, and there's a large population of young Hispanic females that come through there, is that right?
yeah.
You know, small in stature, pretty girls,
No, this average.
average,
Yeah.
okay. And, you know, on this particular, case, or in this particular situation, this officer, you know, came and asked you about the girl in that picture, right, if you'd seen
Yes.
her? And had you seen a young Hispanic girl in a purple dress that day?
The day, maybe not, but see, once they come through, when I'm at the gate, they not living there, we have, you know, what they try, we won't let them in the gate unless they walking with somebody.
Okay. Was this person walking with somebody?
That day, when we came through, like I said, I turned her around, cause she wasn't with nobody.
Okay. And did you talk to her?
All we said, you look, do you have room here? That's what we know that. They said no, we tell them they can't come on, at 10 o'clock, they can't come on the property.
Okay. And was this late when this person was there?
Yeah,
Okay. But you didn't ask her name or where she was
No.
from or anything like that?
no,
Okay. And as far as what your conversation with the officer, did he give you any information about the girl that he was looking for?
they said they were looking for us.
Okay, he didn't tell you that she was had been in Seattle or came from
I
Seattle.
can't remember, he did not, but he said they were looking for us.
Okay. And then you pointed him over to the Valero, and were you aware that none of the people at the Valero remember seeing that girl that
Cause
way?
most of, when they come to, there, that's most of where they go.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, Your Honor.
Can you redirect?
Nothing else from him, Your Honor.
May this witness be finally excused.
No objection from the state, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Mitchell, please watch your step getting down from the witness stand, but
Okay.
you are free to leave. Go about your business, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
you what?
Oh, your hat.
I will lose it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we need to send you back to the jury room, but we should have you back in court here in 5 minutes.
All right.
Don't wander off.
I'm sorry.
You may be seated. I assume that's what.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And your next witness is,
Ms. Dykes.
all right, Deputy Ms. Dykes needs to go ahead and take the witness.
Just don't want me to remind you also.
Oh, all right, we can do that now. We are outside the presence and hearing of the jury, Mr. Harris.
May I call the time, Judge?
Yes, all right, Ms. Dykes, if you would please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may proceed.
Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Lisa Dykes.
And Ms. Dykes, you understand that this is a portion of the trial. Now the state having arrested, we're putting on the defense. You've heard all the evidence that the state has presented. You've seen some of the witnesses that we've called. You understand you have an absolute right to testify, absolute right not to testify. It's totally up to you. And we made a decision whether or not you wanted to testify.
I have,
And can you tell the court?
I agree to testify.
And is that a decision you make freely and voluntarily?
It is.
I mean, me or Ms. Batson is not forcing you to testify, right?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, you've known from the jump that from day one you wanted to testify.
Absolutely.
And you're telling this judge that you're waiving Fifth Amendment right and you want to testify.
I do.
So I'm not judge.
All right, Ms. Dykes, you do understand that if you were to choose not to testify, the jury would be instructed in writing that they could not consider it for any purpose whatsoever as a circumstance against you, meaning that they couldn't hold it against you if you chose not to testify or consider it as evidence against you.
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand that as well,
I do.
that I would give them that written instruction.
I do.
All right. Then Deputy Ms. Dykes will take the witness stand.
Just 2 minutes for refreshing break.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brief. Don't come back, no phone, no phone. Mr. Sattler go?
Nope. Judge, I didn't see him back there, but he may have went to the restroom.
Mr. Sattler? Thank you.
No, it's just, oh, yeah, no.
All right, we're ready for the jury. We're ready.
All rise.
You may be seated. Call your next witness.
Judge, ladies and gentlemen, jury will call for Ms. Lisa Dykes.
All right, Ms. Dykes, if you would please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, Your Honor.
Thank you. Put your hand down. You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge.
Mr. Harris, you can move the TV onto the floor if it would be easier for you.
No, Judge, I'm just gonna swing over this way.
All right.
So, go ahead and state your name for the record,
My name is Lisa Dykes.
and can I approach you?
You may.
You have a very soft voice, so I want you to make sure you keep your voice up and speak into the microphone, okay?
Yes, sir.
So the members of the jury can hear everything you have to say. Can you do that for me?
Of course.
We've heard a lot of what Charles Beltran, Chuck 50/50 had to say, and that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. But before we go into the things that Chuck testified to, I want to talk about you first. Can you tell members of the jury, how old are you?
I am 60 years old.
I was hesitating because you're not supposed to ask a woman how old they are, right?
No, that's perfectly okay. I'm
Okay.
60 years old.
All right. Ms. Dykes, let's talk about, we heard a lot about you being a, I guess, paralegal. Tell members of the jury, where were you born?
I was born in Somerset, Kentucky.
Okay. And at some point, we're not gonna go over your whole history, all their husbands, how many husbands you had?
I've had 3 husbands, and then of course I'm married to Nina.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
Many of the relationships you kind of want to forget about?
I would like to forget about all 3 of the relationships with the men that I've been married to, quite frankly.
Okay. Let's fast forward and let's just get to the point. You were working at the time in, let's talk about 2020. Let's start there.
Okay.
But before we do that, I did want to briefly talk about your children as well.
Yes, sir.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3.
3? And what are your children now?
Chelsea, who's 40.
And the state talked about her earlier, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, who else?
Aaron, who is 39,
Mm-hmm.
and Kyle, who is 34.
All right. As far as them being present here, do you have concerns for their safety?
Absolutely. I would not want them and don't want them exposed to having the same issues that Maricela experienced. Chuck is a violent man, and I don't want anything to happen to them.
Okay. And in fact, we'll talk about that, but I also want the members of the jury to understand that before you met Charles Beltran, you had a life, right?
Absolutely. I had a good life. I had a good life.
And everyone is trying, or it seems like the witnesses that have testified are making it seem like you were dependent on me.
No, that's actually not true. I've been a litigation paralegal for 34 years. So I was at a glass ceiling in my income. Nina actually made about the same amount of money that I did, and she's an attorney. So I was making quite a good salary at what I do. Like I do the litigation work, so it pays well.
Okay, as far as Nina, what type of attorney is she?
Nina was actually working for the city of New York, so she was working for a governmental agency, which doesn't pay as well as private sector anyway. So she was working for the city of New York, doing housing work, so she did in a different area of law than me too. So it's not the same, it's not similar.
Okay, and just while we're on the subject, Nina, they said that she was married to William or Bill.
Yes.
He subsequently passed. When Bill passed, where were they living?
They weren't living in Pennsylvania, as you've heard before. Nina and Bill had a house that was in Staten Island. That house was way overfinanced and upside down, basically is the best way to describe that house. The house that was in Pennsylvania was a house that Nina bought and paid for, and she paid $60,000 for the house.
Okay, now when you say the house that was in Pennsylvania, that wasn't a house that her and Bill lived in, right?
No, they paid very little money for this house. It was a 4-bedroom house, 4-bedroom, 3-bath. The house was in poor condition, so they would only go there. Nina would go sometimes by herself on the weekend, but she didn't live there. They did not reside there.
Okay, and the other interesting thing, that house was in the same neighborhood that her parents were in.
It was a budding, so it was exactly like the lots almost met. From the upstairs bedroom window, Nina's bedroom window, you could see Nina's mom and dad's house. So it was right there.
Okay, and I just want to briefly touch base on that. As far as Nina and her parents, she didn't have a good relationship with the parents, right?
They had been alienated from the time Nina was like 15 or 16. They spoke, but it was very seldom, and they were not close. And this was something that gave Nina a lot of concern. She was emotionally, like, very much wanting to have that family back. So one of the reasons that she bought this house was so that she would be able to see them and possibly reconnect.
All right, did y'all invest a lot of money in that house?
Yes. Nina had decided to put the house on the market in like April or maybe even March before she and I got married. So she couldn't afford to borrow the money because she was upside down at the house in Staten Island. She was trying to sell it so that we could get out from underneath that mortgage because it was large. So she couldn't afford to fund the money or to borrow the money to fix this house to put it on the market. So whenever we got married, one of the first things that I did was fly up there and we borrowed the money so that we could fix the house, put it on the market, and sell it.
Okay, and I'm going over all that because this notion that you were with her just for her money, is that true?
No, absolutely not. Like, we both brought money to the table. God blessed us both in being able to make a good living. And it was something that the marriage made us more solid financially. But I didn't need Nina to pay bills. Nina didn't need me to pay bills. We're together primarily because we actually love each other. I've known Nina for 16 years today. I knew Nina for 13 years before we got married. So we had been best friends that whole time.
All right, and I wanna get to the point, but I also wanna make sure the jury understands, as far as Nina's relationship with Bill, it wasn't a good relationship, was it?
It was a horrible relationship. He was abusive. He did all kinds of things like stalking her in the area where she was staying. When they split and separated, Nina stayed in Pennsylvania. But Bill was like you had heard testimony before, he was parking on the street behind the house. So he was watching her in that house in Pennsylvania.
All right, and the only reason I'm making reference to, because you got two women who basically had bad history with me.
Very, very.
And at some point, y'all befriend each other, fall in love.
Well, we love each other. We love each other like sisters. Like, this is a unique relationship. I think we might think about marriage, Nina and I do, maybe differently than the average person. Not every marriage is based on sex or, that physical connection. Nina and I are supportive of each other in every way other than that. Like, we love each other like a sister. We love each other, like, truly. Like, anything that Nina's going through, I want to help her with that. Anything I'm going through, Nina wants to help me with that.
Okay, let me stop you there, because I want to make sure we continue to move on, but, I mean, that's very important.
Yeah.
But this, y'all made the decision to, after y'all got married, to go by Lisa and Nina Beltran. Can you explain to the members of the jury how that decision came about?
Yes. My last name is slang, basically. A dyke is slang for a gay woman. And it would be just a horrible name for us to take as a last name for us. Pennsylvania allows you to change your name to any name that you choose to whenever you get married. So when we looked at the names that we wanted to take as a last name, Dykes is right out of the picture. So Morano was not really a name that we wanted to take because of her relationship with Bill. So we looked at other names of people that were around us or names that were of interest, and Beltran was an interesting name. It means raven in Spanish, and it has a history, and it was a better name. We asked Chuck if he had a problem with us taking it. It was not in any kind of connection to him, but it was just a name that appealed to both of us, so we took that name.
So you didn't take that name because y'all were obsessed with Charles Beltran?
Absolutely not.
All right, let's move forward. I wanted to talk to you about you abruptly leaving your employer. Was it abrupt?
I had problems with my employer, yes, from certain standpoint issues of bonusing.
Okay, and when you say bonusing, basically, you as a paralegal are doing all the work, because this was car wreck cowboy stuff, right?
Yes,
These are car wrecks.
yes,
You were working these cases,
absolutely,
but he's making all the money.
absolutely.
Now, were there other cases that you were working on with him as well?
Yes, in particular, we started having an issue with a case that I had brought in, and I brought it in from my contact. It was a case that was wrongful death. And in personal injury, wrongful death cases settle for a considerable sum of money. Like, one of the bonusing structures that we had when we brought these cases in was a percentage of the settlement, right? This particular case settled for $3 million, a little over that.
Okay, let me stop you there, just so the members of the jury know. Who'd you get that case from?
A friend of mine, contact of mine, and she testified here. Her name was Catherine DeLeon.
The hairdresser.
Absolutely,
Okay. And
absolutely.
she didn't get as much money as she thought she should get out of it.
She surely did not.
All right, but anyway, the bottom line is you were having issues with you making all the money, or you making all the money, but the attorney getting all the money.
Yes, and not paying a percentage of bonus that I should receive.
All right, and during this time period, it's early October, late September, did you have plastic surgery?
I did.
All right, we have medical records to support that, don't we?
Yes, you do.
All right, as a result of the plastic surgery, were you on medication for the pain?
Yes, I definitely was.
And did that affect your important?
It did.
In what way?
I couldn't be there, which was essential. I was at that point in time doing the negotiations for the firm. So if I couldn't make my nut, which was a strange term, but if I couldn't meet the quota of settlements that we had, like the money for payroll was gonna come out of saved money back. So I needed to be there with the surgery. I could not be there like I needed to be. And I also, like, my focus wasn't as good as it should be whenever you're taking pain meds like hydrocodone, which I was taking at the time.
Okay, and did that have a lot to do with, you, eventually leaving?
It did.
All right. As far as your, this surgery, tell members of the jury what type of surgery you had again?
There were 2 procedures that I had done, and it was a wedding gift for me, so I'll tell you that. Like, I had lost a considerable amount of weight, so I had extra skin, it's the easiest way to explain it. And no tightness, like in my thighs in particular. So I had a procedure done on both legs called a thigh-plasty. And in that procedure, a triangle of the flesh is actually cut out in the center part of the leg, and then stitched back together to make it look tighter and smoother, right? And I also had a lower facelift done because I had extra skin. So I had both procedures done at once.
Okay, and were these procedures extremely painful?
They were. My thigh-plasty ended up being a failed procedure. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. Whenever he took the skin and tissue out, he took out too much. So when he closed it back, that first day it was okay, while I was still in the facility. And it was a plastic surgery center that had an in-house, like, hospital kind of setting. So you stayed that day, and then you were released home the next day. The very first day I went home, all sutures started popping out. First in the left leg, and then in the right. And it was immediate. So it was first like 3 or 4, and then it was 5, and then all of them. So I called the doctor, he told me to come back. I had to actually get an Uber to go back because Chuck was supposed to have been available to help take care of me some because Nina was in trial work. So I didn't want her to lose the trial work in New York. It should have been an easier procedure than what it was, but the complications happened.
All right, and as far as the complications that you're referring to, do we in fact have some photos of that?
You do?
Here's my approach.
You may.
I got one. Let me show you what's marked as defense exhibit number 10. Are these the medical records that we put on file with the court? And will they assist you in testifying to the members of the jury the extent of the injury that you had during that time period?
Yes.
And the Uber ride back to the doctor's office that you're referring to happened when?
The very first day post the surgery. So it was first day of the month.
So that would have been what day?
I think the surgeries.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
I think the surgeries were performed like on September 10th, I think. So it was September the 11th.
Okay, so September the 11th. Can you show me, well, Judge offer was marked as defense 10.
You're on a no objection.
Defense exhibit number 10 is admitted for all purposes.
Thank you, Judge. Now, I promised you I wouldn't publish these, right?
Yeah, they're,
But
I apologize in advance. They're not pretty.
But if anyone has any questions about the extent of the injuries you had to your thighs, These photos depict that, do they not?
Absolutely.
And even in October, I think when we made reference to you guys going to to Arkansas, were you having issues with your legs at that time?
Yes.
All right, and I wanted to ask you specifically about the trip to Arkansas. How'd y'all end up going to Arkansas?
The trip to Arkansas was unplanned. Whenever I had this procedure initially done, Dr. Armijo had told me that the surgery would be, my legs would be the best they were going to be at 3 weeks. So this was exactly 3 weeks post the surgery, right? So Nina and I had planned to go to California. We had tickets to fly to Los Angeles for that weekend, for October 4th.
Were you able to fly to Los Angeles?
No,
Why not?
I had a doctor's appointment with Dr. Armijo that Friday before this weekend. He told me absolutely under no circumstance should I fly. So they were that bad that I couldn't really travel by plane with them because plane and the pressure in the plane itself was going to cause that to be a lot worse. It would increase bleeding, it would increase the difficulties I was having with it and worsen them.
Okay. But as far as the incisions, what is this photo I'm looking at right here?
That's actually open fat tissue because there was no skin. I had no, like the skin just, there wasn't enough to cover the wound. So the actual incision started to open in the beginning on the first day. And there's actually pictures of that too.
Okay, so this reflects what?
This is what it's like, and you can see on the edge a few of the sutures that were left. Those actually were completely gone.
Permission to publish that?
You may.
Now, Ms. Dykes, you're not saying that on October 1st your leg was opened up like this, right?
Oh, it was.
Okay. It was?
It was, yes.
Okay.
Like I had started to use, I had to use special bandaging for this and special treatment, wound treatment. So there's a particular chemical called hydroferrous blue that's on like a sponge bandage that I had to order through my plastic surgeon for it to be applied to grow skin. So I still had no skin at that time.
Okay, so, but you had bandages over them
I did. I had to change them frequently, but I had them.
because they were bleeding.
They would bleed and they would also weep serous fluid, so it would weep white blood cells.
All right, now, as far as, can you explain to the members, with the court's permission, can she explain to the members of the jury where your injuries were?
They're exactly in the groin. Like, it's right at the top. Like, they make a Y incision at the top of your groin, and then it goes all the way down the inside of your leg to a couple of inches above your knee. The place where I had no skin was right in the crotch. Right
In this area?
Right there, yep.
And would you have to have that bandage,
There were 4 layers that had to go on.
all the way down?
Yep,
To-
to cover it to about 2 inches, 3 inches above your knee.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if they want to see the extent of what this surgery, the damage, what is this I'm looking at here?
That's actually the wound, is it starting to grow some skin.
Okay. So, but when would this be? That's what it looks like without the bandage?
Yeah, that's what it looks like without the bandage after it started to actually smooth out just a little, and this is all brand new skin and serous fluid.
Okay, so in the beginning of October, do these pictures accurately reflect what your wound would have looked like post-surgery?
They do.
Permission to publish that?
You may.
And I guess because these are open wounds, that's why you were taking the hydrocodone for the pain?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I used to think having a baby was 10, right? With this particular injury, where this was, and pain factor involved, this is a 10, and having a baby is 5.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea of what that was in dealing with it.
Okay, so, just so I'm clear, because of this surgery, what about the face? What,
The face was still an issue, like I wasn't supposed to bend over. Like you can't really bend over like this whenever you've got like surgery to the lower part of your face. The pain from it was not as bad. I was a little surprised that my ear wasn't attached on the right side whenever I came home, so I had a few things going on with that, and the wounds were still raw and open, but
Madam Proceed.
You may.
You remember the October picture that the, oh Lord. Have one moment, John.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep these in order so you don't kill me. Why was your hair pink like that?
you
Do you
know,
recall?
I do kind of recall that. Like I was looking for something fairly lively, and Kat actually picked that color out for me.
And when you say cat, you're referring to the hairdresser, right?
Kat and Delion.
On the photo that she put, that they were using, when she was testifying, with you in the pink hair,
Yes, sir.
that photo actually shows the injuries that you're referring to, doesn't it?
It does.
Close. Once more, the state's exhibit number 86.
Yes.
Okay, where do you see the, I guess,
It's right at the hairline right here.
and this is what you're referring to here?
This scar and right there, and also there's a scar back here you can see.
Right.
And then I had another one under my chin, and you can see a little bit of that.
Okay. Permission to publish,
You may.
so you're talking here,
Here, right here, yes.
and then in the back here,
Right there, yep.
and then in
Under
this
my-
area.
Under my chin, there's a stitch, you can see it.
And you can see if you really look closer, you can see the stitchings
Mm-hmm.
in your chin, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And so you're not only dealing with the facelift surgery, you're dealing with your thighs as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that affect your work performance, correct?
It did.
I mean, it affects your activity, period.
It affected everything.
But the doctor told you it might do that, right?
He did.
And so, as far as a lot of the restrictions you had, you definitely had restrictions or you should have been watching what you lift.
You couldn't lift anything at all
And why is that?
because it could cause, on a normal surgery, even lifting was prohibited because it could cause all of this to come loose again as far as the facelift goes. And it would also cause strain in your thighs and cause them to open too. That's not the reason mine did, but it could cause that complication.
All right. Before we start talking more about Charles Beltran, I did want to, these people talk about you basically look like you had a midlife crisis or something like that. Remember Jimmy, your brother Jimmy,
Yes,
saying that?
yes.
All right, can you talk about the blood clot problems you had before you met Charles Beltran?
Yes, sir, I can. In my 40s, I had an unusual medical condition that popped up. Like, I'm really driven to work. Like, I've raised 3 kids by myself. So me working is just always been who I am. It's how I relate to life, I guess. So I work more than I should. But I had been working a lot, so I ended up having very unusual aortic blood clots.
Now, aortic blood clots, what are those?
The aorta sits right underneath the heart, right? So it's under here. So this means that a blood clot had to pass literally through my heart and lodge in this particular area of the body, which is what it did. So I had some very unusual symptoms in like stomach pain as opposed to what you would think. Whenever I went to the hospital, the blood clot had shattered. So it blocked almost every major like organ in my body. My kidneys, my liver, my large intestines, and both of my legs.
So how long were you in the hospital as a result of this blood clot?
30 days. Right at 30 days.
Were these life-threatening injuries?
Absolutely. They told my children and me that I had about a 25% chance of living. If I did live through it, it was anticipated that I would be a double amputee because they knew they were going to have to cut off my legs from at least the knee down, if not more.
Why?
Because of the damage from no blood flow. I basically had 0 blood flow. So that was a problem.
But somehow they rectified the situation, you didn't lose your legs.
They didn't rectify anything. Actually, my body pretty much dissolved blood clot for the most part, and thank God, like I managed to come out and I was okay for 10 years. Then here in Texas, that first one happened when I was living in Florida. 10 years later, I am also in a position where I'm under a lot of pressure. And I was working, trying to settle another case of quadriplegic.
So just so the members of the jury are clear, that's the first time you had a blood clot.
First time.
10 years later, you had another blood
Yes,
clot.
approximately 6 years ago, I had another one. So the second one was also an aortic blood clot, did the same thing. Like it was shattered, I had blood clots everywhere, all through my body. So they airlifted me from Mesquite to Dallas to Baylor Scott White, where it was the same situation again. Like I was in risk of dying from that point. Obviously I was airlifted, so like it wasn't a good situation, but I'm here.
You survived.
I am.
After you survived that death scare, I mean, how does that affect your life?
I think it affects everything. Like, whenever you come that close, not once, I mean, once is enough, but twice, I think you have to reevaluate your life, like what you're looking for in life, if you're where you need to be in life, and you know, you think about what's going to happen to your children and your future at that
All right,
point.
so at that time, did you reevaluate what you were doing and what things you wanted to do in life?
Absolutely.
And so what happened after that?
I've raised children, I feel like, from the time I was born. Like, you know, my kids are older, but they've always been with me and I've always been spending money on them. There's never enough money. It's gone before you get it. So my retirement wasn't right. It wasn't where it needed to be. I obviously needed to start putting money back for retirement and get my life straight for that. And
Yeah.
plus, I don't want to work all the time. Like,
All right.
I didn't want to work all the time.
So did you heard Jimmy say you kicked everybody out? What's your version of that?
That's not correct. Like, I wanted to go back home to Florida. Like, Texas is great, I'm sure, but I'm from Florida. Primarily, I wanted to go back home. So the whole goal was for me to move the family back to Florida while I was waiting on some larger cases to settle so that I would have more cash flow. So we invested, I gave them the money for a down payment on their house. They bought the house, helped to get them there, paid off my son's car so that he would be able to help pay that payment and put them in the house in Florida.
So your plan was always to go back to Florida?
Absolutely.
Okay. And at some point, you and Nina wanted to go back to Florida.
It was always our intent to go back to Florida.
In fact, did you have a business there?
We did. We opened a business during COVID, a law firm together that was doing personal injury, and it was doing well.
Okay. All right. Tell us how you met Charles Beltran.
He was working for my son, Kyle, as a bouncer at a bar in D-Bella. I was actually looking for workers to work a poll, an election poll, for a local judge here in the civil divisions. And I needed, I think, 15 people under a certain age and demographic bracket to work this poll. So Kyle introduced me to several of the young men that are in the area, and young women, and I got their phone numbers, they got my phone number to work this situation.
Okay. How did you end up investing in his rap career?
I'm sorry?
How did you end up investing in Chuck's rap career?
I met him in April. He reached out to me at some point, and he reached out to me to make connection. And it was primarily for someone to fund him in his career choices. He actually talked to me from April on through the time whenever I moved the children out of the house in August. But he presented himself well. He also had had a fairly successful career in Austin. Not like what you heard here that was played. It was actually something where he was invited to a couple of locations and he was working with other people in his career, so perhaps they were the more talented aspect, but he had a more successful kind of career choice.
But were you, initially, again, was it a love interest thing?
No, Chuck was and continued to always be a business interest that went sideways.
In fact, why did you buy the car?
I bought the car as an investment in a tax deduction basically for him in his career. I set up a company for him called Math Class. That was his company for him to be able to do this music and to record.
I mean, y'all helped him with a lot of legal stuff, right?
We did.
And before I forget, he had paternity issues
He
with
did.
Jasmine.
He had paternity issues with Jasmine and he had visitation issues with Emerald out
Okay.
of Austin.
And were y'all helping him with that?
Yes, at his request.
At his request?
Yes.
Any notion about you trying to steal Jasmine's baby?
I raised 3. I don't want any more babies. I would
Okay.
never.
All right. I want to move forward and let's just get to the point. This trip to Arkansas. First, I think you indicated it wasn't even a scheduled trip.
Not for me and Nina.
How did you end up going on the trip?
We had paid for them to go. We had paid for the hotel. We had paid for all of it, for them to actually perform. It was a performance. When we couldn't fly to California, Chuck had 2 tickets that were his, that were comp tickets. And he said, well, you know, who would I take but you two? Like, you've, you know, funded this, you're part of it, so will you go? It was like about a 4-hour ride, I think. So that's something that I could tolerate. As long as I'm sitting down or laying down, that's okay. I could do that.
Now, you heard, Dax and everybody say you were driving, is that true?
No, I was in the passenger seat and it was reclined.
Okay, so who was driving?
Nina was driving.
Okay. When y'all are down in Arkansas, you heard, I think it was Freddie, they were joking about Chuck having to come to your room to have sex with y'all. Did he have come to your room and have sex with y'all?
Absolutely not.
But did he come to the room and have a drink?
I think he might have. I think he did.
When y'all finished, do you remember when y'all got back to Dallas?
I don't remember exactly what time it was, but we checked out at about 11-ish. So I think it's a 4-hour drive, which would put us mid-afternoon.
Okay. As far as when y'all get back, who takes the band back?
Nina and I took the band back.
You didn't trust Chuck to take the band back?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so y'all take the band back.
Yes.
All right. Once you take the band back, do you recall what y'all did after that point?
I don't specifically. I think we stopped and got food and went home and watched TV.
Okay.
You know.
And that would be October the 4th, right?
Yes,
That
sir.
Sunday.
Mhm.
Right.
Oh, and I forgot. We had to go pick up the dog because we had boarded him.
All right.
So we went and got the dog.
And tell us about this dog.
Chuck had brought home a dog.
What type of dog?
He was a pit bull mix.
And,
And the dog's name was uniquely Charles.
okay.
So we had,
Who took care of that dog?
I did.
Did Chuck take care of the dog at all?
The dog hated Chuck. Absolutely. When he brought the dog home, he said that he wanted it for sun protection house, extra protection house. And the dog was okay with him for a while, but Chuck used to beat the dog. So the dog started to get to a point where he was growling every time Chuck was around. He was not having Chuck around.
Okay. And where did that dog stay?
He slept in my bed. And he
Because
stayed.
Nina, well, when Nina was there, did she sleep in the bed with you?
Yes.
All right. Was he almost like a service dog to you?
He was like a comfort animal, more than a service dog. So he stayed with us all the time.
But you took care of him.
I took care of him.
And so when y'all went to Arkansas, y'all boarded him.
We boarded him for that day.
And when you got the dog,
We went and got the dog.
anything else uneventful happened on that, I guess, Sunday
Not
that
at
you
all.
recall?
Not at all.
Okay. Now during that time period, was Nina working on a big case?
Yes, just as I had said, she had a particularly large case with a building that was in the city where the elevators were failing off and on. So all of the tenants and the tenant association was really upset with it.
Okay. And was she receiving and sending, I guess, packages back and forth?
Yes, in particular Discovery. So she was in a process of discovery on this with maintenance records and dealing with the maintenance people that work for the city of New York with this building.
Okay. On that weekend, she's working on her case. Was she anticipating some documents?
She was.
I guess that Monday, was she still looking for the documents?
Yes, they were supposed to have come in, I think, Monday morning in early delivery, but they didn't show.
Okay, because the documents didn't show, what did y'all do?
Well, we're kind of in dire straits because Nina really needed them because when she flew back, she had like a hearing, I think. So it was something that we had to have. So she started to look for where the documents were.
All right. In short, later that evening, did y'all go to a FedEx?
We did.
All right. And you've seen the, we talked about the FedEx that you went to, it wasn't in Wilmington, was it?
I don't believe it was, no. It was more toward the Hutchins area, maybe?
Okay. They, and is this a, tell the members of the jury a little bit about the FedEx location y'all ended up going to.
It was one of the larger distribution centers in the area. Like it's like a major kind of hub area. So it's one of the bigger ones.
And is it all 45 though?
I believe it is, yes.
And again, it's not in Hutchins, right? I mean, it's not in Wilmer, but it's in Hutchins.
I think so.
And is it in that same vicinity that they're saying that your phone's pinged?
I believe it is.
One moment, please.
So actually, I think it's a good time to take our afternoon break, ladies and gentlemen. We will be at recess for 5 minutes, which means 10.
All right. Nice move.
You may be seated, and we're at recess for 5.
Yeah, I know.
That book, and I sent.
I'm sorry, I thought I wrote that down. It's the address was Cleveland. Hmm.
Disaster curtain. Steve's gonna get his truck.
What?
Steve's gonna get his truck.
Want somebody to pick up?
Yes, but the one I was thinking about, Liz about you.
Oh, okay. I got step in.
Thank you so much.
See this trigger. I want to make sure the charge will work out. Check it for me.
We're ready, Mr. Sadler. Yes.
All rise.
You may be seated. All right, Mr. Harris, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Dice, this FedEx distribution center, well, you heard this Turntree address, what is it, 274 Turntree
Yes, sir.
in Wilmer? You did live there at one point,
We did, yes,
like back in 2016, right?
yes.
Is that how you know about this FedEx distribution center over in Hutchins?
It is. I used to work in downtown Dallas for another law firm, obviously, and I pay attention to where these FedEx centers are because they use them a lot. So it's part of what I do. A lot of times you have to drop off and you need a place that's a bigger facility that has longer hours or you know that it'll ship quicker. So I always pay attention to those things.
Okay, now, as far as this facility was concerned, y'all were picking up,
Yes,
or Nina was picking up.
Nina was picking up from work. Yes, they had sent her the package that she needed.
Okay, and she had been trying to locate that package.
She did try, but it's so hard and she needed it really quick, so like tracking it electronically wasn't working like it needed to. So it just made sense to go someplace and get some help with it.
All right, now, when y'all go down to this distribution center, well, if I told you that the address was 1101 East Cleveland Road in Hutchins, Texas, would that be about right?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
And how far would you say that that's from your house?
I think it's probably 20-25 minute drive, maybe?
From the seat?
Yes.
Just hit 635, hit 20, boom, you're there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
All right. May I approach you?
You may.
Let me show you what's marked as defense exhibit number 11 and 12.
Last I had was defense exhibit 10.
Yes, ma'am. Let me show you what's marked as defense exhibit number 11 and 12. Does this look like it's just a MapQuest where we pulled up that location in relation to your home and where that FedEx distribution center is?
Yes, sir.
Would this assist you in testifying to the members of the jury the route that you recall y'all taking that day?
It does, yes.
All right, Judge, I'll offer what's marked as defense exhibit number 11 and defense 12.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right,
Commission
defense,
published.
well, defense exhibits 11 and 12 are admitted for all purposes.
Thank you,
And
Your
you
Honor.
may.
Now, just so the members of the jury know, we're saying your house would have been somewhere up in here, right?
Yes, sir.
And then y'all travel to Hutchins here.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, do you recall when y'all got on 45, what exit were y'all supposed to take?
I don't know the number, but it's like Dowdy Ferry.
Let me show you what's marked as defense 13. Defense 12, I'm sorry. And is this Downey Ferry here?
Yes, sir.
And just so the members of the jury know, when you come out 45, you loop and come in this area here, and that's where the distribution center is.
Yes, it's someplace back in there. It's sort of like off.
All right, so at some point when y'all are trying to get to the distribution center, do y'all miss the turn at Dowdy Ferry?
Yes, we did.
And where did y'all end up having to turn around at?
I think it was like wintergreen.
Okay, so, and would wintergreen be in this area here, where we say East Wintergreen?
Yes.
So you come further down 45 south, exit is 273, and then y'all would loop back around, right?
Yes, sir.
And go back up till you get to the distribution center, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is basically what we see here, right? Going back up to the distribution center in this area.
Yes, sir.
All right. As far as the towers that they showed, that you saw the state show, if you were in that area, would that explain why your phones were pinging in that area?
I would assume so.
Did you go to Wilmer that day?
No.
Other than going to that Wintergreen on 45 and looping back up to go to the distribution center, did you ever go to, what is it, I think it was 3600 Post Oak and drop a body off?
No, sir.
All right. I do want to talk to you a little bit more about the distribution center so the members of the jury will understand. Again, this is a huge distribution center, right?
Yes.
And when
It's
you-
extremely large.
When y'all get there, do you have trouble finding somewhere to park?
Nina did have trouble finding someplace to park. There's a lot of folks that come and go from there.
All right, and as far as that, was she trying to find somewhere to park up close at first?
She was, because obviously, like, we generally do things together, but, like, I'm not walking any distance at all, so that's not happening.
So at some point she parked, tried to go in, or went in, right? Because you didn't go in.
No,
Okay. At some point, is she able to pick up the package?
she went in, but I think we might have been late, I'm not sure, but she didn't get the package.
Okay. After y'all leave that distribution center, what do y'all do?
We went back home.
Did she subsequently find a way to get her package?
I'm assuming she did. Like, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming she did, or managed to get the documents another way.
Okay. At any time while y'all were in that Hutchins area, did you have Marcella with you?
No.
All right, let's get to talk about Charles Beltran some more. I think when we left off, we were talking about Charles the dog.
Charles the dog.
Okay. I want to talk to you about Mr. Beltran working. Did he actually work for your son?
As I understand it, yes. He was a bouncer at the club.
And at some point he got fired, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
For his activities there at the club, right?
Yes, he did.
Not just being aggressive with the women.
No, not just that.
Okay. Issues he was having with other patrons.
He was fighting every night, and he was a bouncer. So he was getting into altercations and fights every night.
And is this something he would brag to you and Nina about?
Yes.
Okay. When you met him, did you know he had a felony convictions?
No, I didn't, actually. I didn't know what kind of convictions he had. He said that he had just gotten out of a halfway house.
Okay. What about the Santa Morta? Where did he say he got Santa Morta from?
He did talk to me about Santa Muerta and said that he had learned about it while he was in jail, and then he practiced. So he practiced the religion.
All right, and so the altar that we see in your home in Mesquite belonged to him, correct?
It did.
In fact, it's in the same, was that in his room or in the one of the other rooms?
It's in the closet in his room from the picture.
All right. And while we're on it, let's talk about Pennsylvania and this altar that's supposed to be in Pennsylvania. Can you explain to the members of the jury what that was all about?
Yes, I'd be happy to. We listed this house for sale. Nina, being an attorney, had documents from private clients that she had that we had in a hall closet. It's a locked entryway closet, and there was a lock on it for a reason. The paperwork and things that we had there were client attorney and privileged. We didn't want that information out where the house was being shown. Her husband, Bill, had kind of a weird sense of humor. So in this closet, there was like a Halloween skeleton that's full size, like human size. And he had put, because they were Mormon, a Mormon religious like piece of clothing on it. It's like a long white robe. But it was bundled up in like on the floor of the closet. It's not anything else. So it was just a bunch of stuff and storage that we had in there that we kept locked, including paperwork that we didn't want shown to people coming to look at the house.
Well, you heard the neighbor from Pennsylvania said y'all were kneeling to it, praying to it. You remember that?
I remember her saying that, and I also have no concept why she would have said it. We never did that.
All right. Did that skeleton have anything to do with Santa Marta?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Okay, back to Mr. Beltran. Now, you don't have any felony convictions, right?
No.
What you had some, you had some like a theft check or something like that?
There was 2 return checks to Costco that I didn't know anything about until I came here to Dallas on these charges, and they served me with those. So those return checks happened while I was in Pennsylvania.
But those checks out of Rockwall?
They're out of Rockwall.
Oh, and wasn't there something about a gun? What?
Yes.
A gun at the airport?
Yes, I had a very, very, very small antique handgun that was completely jammed. The bullet was jammed in the chamber, so it wouldn't fire, it wouldn't shoot. I took it to a gun shop that was really close to the house, but the gunsmith wasn't there. And I did it right before I was flying to see the kids that weekend. Forgot I had it. When I got to the airport, I realized the minute I was going through security, I was like, no, I have a gun in his purse. So I told them at the spot that I did. I was never actually arrested on that charge. Like, it was a situation where they told me if I had like a concealed carry permit, the gun wouldn't have been an issue. I could have taken it back out and put it in the locker in the car and gone on the trip. But I was never actually arrested with that. I stayed at the airport facility and it was dismissed and I left and went home.
Okay, but I do want to ask you, Chuck did carry a gun, didn't he?
All the time, every day, any place that he went.
I want to talk to, when did he actually move in with you?
He moved in August whenever the children moved out to the house in Florida.
And I say moved in with you, I mean, you're not the only person he lived with, right?
No,
I mean, you knew he had an apartment, right?
absolutely.
Or an apartment that he also stayed with some other women.
Absolutely. He stayed in a couple of different locations with women, I believe.
But particularly one woman, this Carmen, right?
As I understood it, yes.
And it wasn't just Carmen, there was other women at that place too.
Yes, from what I understood.
So he moves in, you buy him all that studio equipment.
Yes,
That's true.
absolutely.
He sets up a studio in your house.
He does.
And is he working at first?
He did. He was extremely devoted to it. He kept a whiteboard on the wall. He had scheduled songs that he was doing, scheduled recording times. He had someone coming over to help him produce. So he was actually doing what he was supposed to do. He was trying to create music to actually put on iTunes and make money off of it.
And were you investing in that?
Yes,
The video that, forced the jury to watch, did you pay for that?
yes, I did.
That video and the way he's acting on that video, is that Chuck?
Yes, it is. All the time.
That's not a show, right? That's
No.
who he really is, isn't he?
That really is him.
As far as that studio and as far as him bringing women, were you jealous about him bringing women?
Absolutely not.
As far as him bringing people to the house, did you ever have an argument with him about having some men that you ran into in your own house?
I did. I came home one night from work at 7 o'clock and I didn't know anybody was there. So I went to my room, changed clothes, came in, and got surprised in the kitchen by a strange man who walked out. And Chuck wasn't there.
Okay, and did that upset you?
Very much so.
Okay, did you let him know that?
I did. I told him that I really didn't want anybody in the house unless he was there. Particularly men, whenever I wouldn't know there was anybody in the house with me, so.
Okay, but as far as these women, you heard him say, hey, he brought women over there all the time. Is that true?
He did. He would bring not one, sometimes 2, 3.
And did guys sometimes come with them too?
Absolutely.
They'd be packed up in that studio, right?
Absolutely.
They were doing their thing, you were doing your thing.
Yes.
Oh, did he brag about pulling trains on people?
He did.
Now, what is pulling the train?
He particularly seemed to like having a friend of his, a male friend of his, come over to be with the girls that he brought home. So that's basically 2 guys and a girl.
And he would brag about it.
Absolutely.
But did that make you jealous?
No.
I want to fast forward to the early morning hours of October 5th of 2020. Was Nina there?
Yes.
Were you and Nina there in your room asleep?
Yes, with the dog.
On that day, did you ever come in contact with Maricela?
No.
When Chuck arrived there with her, according to the phone records, in the early morning hours, did you ever know he was there?
No.
Anything unusual about him arriving at your house in the early morning hours?
No.
You heard him say that at some point you came into that room and you stabbed Maricela. Did you go into that room and stab Maricela?
No.
Did you struggle with Maricela?
No, absolutely not.
Did
No.
you argue with Chuck about Maricela?
No.
Had you ever met Maricela?
No.
In reference to this whole Chuck Maricela ordeal, how did you find out about it?
I found out about it whenever the FBI agent showed up and called me on the phone.
Okay, now before that, had you gone into Chuck's room and cleaned his room up?
No.
So as far as whatever blood was in there, who cleaned that blood up, you have no idea.
I have no idea.
You just know it wasn't you.
I know I wasn't, no. I didn't go in the room. No. It wasn't me.
Okay, it wasn't Nina.
It wasn't Nina.
On that night, you don't know how many people he had in that room, do you?
I have no idea.
The next morning, did you ever come in contact with Marcella?
No,
Did you come in contact with Chuck?
no,
At some point, he leaves or at some point you start driving the Audi, right?
yes,
Because on the night of October the 5th, or the early morning hours of October the 5th, who's in the Audi?
Chuck,
That next day, who was in the Audi?
Chuck,
All right, you heard the FBI agents say that they came to talk to you.
right.
All right, you tell the members of the jury what you remember.
They apparently came to my house. I was at work. I was working. So I got a phone call from an agent that claimed he was an FBI agent while I was on the clock at work. So I talked to him there. His conversation with me was basically, do you know Chuck Beltran, or Charles Beltran, I think was what he said. And I was like, yes, I do. How do you know him? He lives at the residence with me, so he lives there.
Now, let me stop you there. Up to this point, do you know anything about some missing girl from Seattle?
No,
You know anything about Charles Beltran being the last person seen with Marcel?
no, I had no clue.
All right, then what happens?
So I told him who he was, that he lived there. The agent didn't go into a whole lot of detail. He said something to the effect that he was the last person seen with a girl who was missing. And that was pretty much the gist of it. He asked me the last time I had seen him, which I think I told him it had been about 2 weeks, because at that point it kind of had been that long. So he asked me that. He told me when I spoke to him to let him know that he was looking for him, which I did promptly. I told him that.
So after you talked to the agent, you immediately called him.
I called him. I said there was an FBI agent that showed up at the house who called me and said that he's looking for you. Here's who it is. That's pretty much what was said.
Okay. Did Charles go into detail about Marcel at that time?
No, he did not elaborate. He didn't say anything else about it. He was like, okay, he took the number supposedly, and that was that.
Did he seem worried at all?
No, not even a little.
Not a concern in the world
No,
that the FBI were looking for him?
no.
I do want to kind of backtrack. At some point, we talked about Beltran, Charles being in the car on October the 5th. At some point, did you drop Nina off at the airport in that vehicle?
Yes,
How did that take place?
I think her flight left on that Wednesday. And whenever I got up to take her to the airport, and then I was going back to work that day, because I hadn't worked Monday or Tuesday. So when I went out to the garage, the Audi was there, and my Hyundai was gone. So I took the Audi and drove to the airport and went to work.
All right, just so members of the jury know, that's really nothing unusual, right?
No, it
Did-
wasn't.
Did he have keys to both vehicles?
Yes,
All right. And you put gas in it, he'd run it out?
bring it, drop it off, I'd have another one. And he would do that while I was at the office too. I would not see Chuck. I would just go out from the office and a different car would be parked in the spot. So
And did that create problems for you at the office as far as your files and your documentation?
yes, because
Explain that to the members of the jury.
yeah, whenever you go home and you work from the office, like sometimes I would need the actual hard physical file. I couldn't just access it by online application to the office file. So I would take the physical file with me. So they would typically be in the back of my Tucson. So I could get them or I would take them back to work and they would be in the car. So when he would change the vehicles or leave with my vehicle and I couldn't get to it and I had a file in the car, that's a real issue because they're active files and something that's being worked on every day. That can cause me to get fired. So him taking the vehicle and me not able to get a hold of him or him trade it back or me be able to get to that was a serious issue for me.
And you saw the phone records earlier showing that you kept trying to contact him.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that's what that was about?
I'm pretty sure that's what that was about.
Did Charles ever tell you what happened to Marcel?
No,
What did he even talk about?
no,
I'm saying, even after y'all realized that he was wanted, you were wanted, what did he talk about?
no. And I didn't know I was wanted
Okay,
until,
we'll talk about that. As far as, after you talked to this FBI agent, right?
yes, sir.
Did somehow your address end up on the social media?
Immediately, that same day.
What problems did that create for you?
It was havoc. That very day that he called me, that night I was at home and I got a text message from someone claiming to be an FBI agent. It was very threatening. It was, I know you know where Chuck is. You need to have him here at such and such a time, such and such a day. Extremely aggressive. So, I mean, it really kind of throws you off. Like, I don't know who this person is. I actually texted this person back and I said, if you will send me a picture of your badge, like your badge number, then I will communicate with you. Never heard another thing.
What other issues did you have after your address went viral?
While I was stuck with Audi and hadn't been able to get the Tucson back, somebody slashed the tires while I was driving it. So it was really kind of aggressive. Like, I was getting strange phone calls too. Like, it was out there. A full picture of the house was out there. It was not safe at all in any way, shape, or form. I had no idea who knew that, who Chuck even had around him that was going to be coming where I was.
Okay, and you felt like all this threatening attention was coming from who?
I felt like it was Chuck and Chuck's friends, Chuck's people, Chuck's surrounding people around him.
And what about the people that were concerned with Marcel?
I'm sorry.
Was there a lot of social media stuff?
Absolutely. It was everywhere. As far as I know, it was everywhere.
So the fact that, I guess, your home, where you live, was on social media,
Absolutely.
and they gave you concern,
Very much so.
safety concerns.
Very much so.
At some point, will you tell the members of the jury why you quit your job and went to Florida?
We had intended to go to Florida, but I didn't go to Florida first. Like, we still had the house in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So, I mean, this was emotionally very, very, very stressful. Having my house out there, having people contacting me, the tires being slashed, I'm by myself in Texas. Like, I'm still, like, my legs are a nightmare and a disaster. Like, I'm still trying to recover. It was awful trying to be here by myself and deal with that.
Okay, so did you end up going to Pennsylvania where Nina was?
I did. Nina and I had already planned that in January of that next year, that we were gonna move to the same location anyway. Like, it depended on how the house sold as to whether we were going to Pennsylvania or to Florida.
Well,
But
you saw the state had a document saying you had just signed the lease.
I did sign this because I wasn't leaving until January, and the lease was up on October 1st. I didn't want to move furniture or do any of that, so signing the lease was the best solution. Nina and I talked about it, and I went ahead and signed it just so that we would have those 3 months from October until January for me to be able to, finish out, because there were a couple of larger cases that I was trying to resolve for the bonus before I left.
All right, now, as far as, when did y'all actually put the house up for sale in Pennsylvania, if you remember?
I don't remember exactly when we signed the listing because the house had so much repair to have done. Like, we borrowed the money around,
Well, how much money did y'all borrow?
$100,000
Okay, and that was for repairs on the house.
for repairs on the house. It needed a new roof, it needed a new foundation, and it needed a whole new deck on the back.
Okay, did y'all do all that?
We did affect all those repairs. Oh, and we had to tear down like a small, like, barn outbuilding too, so we had to pay for that.
All right, and did that increase the value of the house?
Yes, it surely did.
You hear, I guess everyone's saying y'all were in a rush to sell the house.
We wanted to sell it, and we wanted that income because we wanted to buy a place in Miami, because that's where we wanted to live, and that's why we needed the money. That was the goal.
Y'all needed the money to have anything to do with y'all being on the run.
Absolutely not.
At some point, did y'all sell the house in Pennsylvania?
We did.
Then what happened?
Well, we had already moved and relocated to Florida, so I was working in Hollywood, which is like a little outside area of Miami. So we started to look for a house or property, and we also considered the concept of opening a bar in the Miami area, and Kyle actually managing it for us. So we were looking at a couple of different thoughts.
Okay, well, let's backtrack. How did, Charles Beltran end up in, Pennsylvania?
He knew about the property. He knew that we had the house in Pennsylvania. He knew that we had listed it on the market. So he knew where this house was. So we're in Pennsylvania. We had not actually talked to him. He ended up in Bethlehem, which is just outside of East Stroudsburg where the house was. He called us and told us that he was there.
So y'all didn't send for him?
No,
He just showed up?
he just showed up.
When he showed up, was he asking questions about the house?
He wanted to know if the house had sold. Obviously, he was after the money. He wanted to know if the house had sold. He wanted to know where we were in the house sale.
Okay, but why are you putting up with Charles Beltran?
Charles was a lot more aggressive than what you have been told. He was really bad as far as aggression goes. One night in particular, he was trying to get a hold of me for money. Whenever I woke up in the morning, I had 99 missed phone calls from this man. 99. And he also, at one point, like, I had locked the door. His access into the house was through the garage door because he would come in through the garage. There's a door that went between the kitchen and the garage. So I locked that door. He didn't have a key to it. It really made him mad. When I got home that night, the door was broken. Like the actual door itself was split, the door. And he broke the frame to the point where you couldn't fix the latch on the door. So that was how mad and aggressive he was.
Okay, so you hear all these women talk about how sweet he was. Is that the 50-50 he's referring to?
Well, it's not the 50 I got most of the time in the later days, but he could definitely appear to be. He was a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Okay, let me ask you this. As far as, even after y'all found out he was a person of interest, why did y'all keep, why did you keep,
I'm sorry, he was a what?
after you found out, when did you find out he was a person of interest that the police wanted to talk to?
On that 13th, a phone call from the FBI.
Okay, all right. Okay, at some point y'all go to Miami.
Mhm.
Does he end up in Miami?
He did end up in Miami, yes. He pretty much, like, we had to go get him in Mexico. So when we came back from Mexico, Nina and I were already in between the move because we were in a contract on the house in Pennsylvania.
Okay, let's talk about Mexico. Why did y'all go to Mexico? Was that y'all's idea or his?
It was Chuck wanted to go to Mexico.
Chuck wants something, y'all make it happen.
We made it happen because I didn't trust that I would not end up like Miss Vitello and Nina, like both of us, or our families for that matter.
So you did what Chuck asked you to do.
Absolutely.
At some point, I want to go ahead and talk about when y'all find out, well, when Nina gets arrested. Y'all already set up in Florida, right?
Yes,
You already got your business plan, trying to relocate.
yes.
You heard the agent say that you were there the day she got arrested, is that correct?
Yes.
Tell the members of the jury what happened.
Nina had sent me a text that led me to believe that she was either in the process of being arrested or arrested. My concern was us being able to have enough time for me to get attorneys lined up for us to be able to get something prepared before both of us were arrested, and likely not to be able to do that.
And is that what you did?
That's exactly what I did.
You got out of there,
Yes,
and eventually you got arrested.
I did.
When you got arrested, you saw the video, right?
I did.
Were you on the phone with a lawyer?
At that time, it sure was.
In fact, this lawyer right here.
Yes.
Again, trying to make arrangements for you and Nene.
Yes.
I think you indicated that you actually even sent a lawyer in Florida to try to help her.
I did. I was extremely concerned about Nina's mental health from this.
Okay, let me ask you, why were you concerned with Nina's mental health?
Nina's an attorney. Nina has spent an incredible amount of her time to be an attorney. She is actually a Cambridge scholar. So Nina really has invested everything into this. This case, in and of itself, has destroyed us. The fact that they have brought this charge against me and Nina has ruined our lives.
But ma'am, what I'm asking you about, when Nina was in jail in Florida, did she try to commit suicide?
She
Or
was
did they
on-
have her on suicide watch?
She was on suicide watch because of these things, because of this. So yes,
And so when you see the text messages and you're saying you hope Nina keep her shit together, is that what you're referring to?
yes, I did not want her to have a meltdown and try to commit suicide or effectively be able to do that. And I wanted her to have knowledge that, you know, it's okay, I've got defense lined up for us, I've got things started, it's, you know, it'll be okay.
Okay. I just don't want to make sure I don't forget, because these girls that were at the apartment that Chuck also resided at, did you tell me, or what did you say anything about him potentially being involved in trafficking?
I had suspicion that Chuck was involved with trafficking.
Why?
Because on a couple of occasions, like two separate ones that I can think of in particular, I found a suitcase at the house that was like in the living room area. It was just like a carry-on. And I looked to see what it was, and it was full of young girls' clothing. It was small sizes, young girls' clothing.
Okay. All right, after you got arrested, when did you first find out about that you were being charged with capital murder?
At the arrest in Florida, the arresting officer told me it was capital murder of a police officer and terroristic threatening.
Okay, did you know what any of that meant?
No.
At some point, were you transferred back here to Dallas?
Yes.
Nina as well?
Yes.
All right. You're being held on a capital murder warrant.
Yes.
At that time, as far as Mrs. Patello's disappearance, did you know that they were alleging that you stabbed her?
No. Not until I got here to Texas.
That's the first time you found out that they were alleging, that Charles was alleging that you stabbed Mrs. Patello.
Yes.
Did you stab Mauricio?
Absolutely not.
Did you have any reason to stab Mauricio?
Absolutely not.
Did you have some anger-crazed breakdown because you were so obsessed with Charles?
Absolutely not.
So you find out that you're being charged with, that they're alleging that you stabbed Marcella and Nina helped, right?
That's
That was
what
the
I-
allegation, correct?
Yes.
Because both of y'all are charged.
Yep,
Start going through the process,
yes,
you eventually bond out,
yes,
you get the leg monitors.
yes.
While you're on bond and you have the leg monitors, are you and Nina still living together?
Yes,
Got an apartment,
we got a house.
got a house. All right. Once you're in this house, does any suspicious activity start taking place?
Yes, the entire, well, actually, it was the entire time that we were out on house arrest. People were posting things about us that they saw us and the actual location. Like, people were following us, people were paying attention to where we're going. So, we were constantly underneath some kind of scrutiny by social media, by people who were following the case. If we never had any rest from them, they were always.
In fact, it got so bad, did y'all actually try to do a cease and desist?
We did. We absolutely did.
Tell the jury what that means.
A cease and desist is whenever you send a notification that they must cease and desist from publishing or doing anything against you or in your name, because it was absolutely not correct or true. It was just made up things that were so derogatory, it was affecting everything. So we did do a cease and desist on it.
And did you feel as though it was putting you in danger?
Absolutely.
Were you
No
threatened?
question. Yes.
And then as far as the, what I'm getting at is, at some point y'all cut those monitors off.
We did.
Tell members of the jury why.
We cut the monitors off because we both felt very much persecuted in this case. I do, as I'm sitting here in front of you today, I feel very much like Nina and I have been completely singled out in this case in a way that should not have been. If you consider I was 57 years old when this incident happened. I did nothing but work and raise children all my life. Why would I even be suspicious in this? I've never been arrested. I had no criminal record. Nina's an attorney. She never had any kind of criminal record. Like, we lived a life that was pretty much upstanding. We hadn't ever done anything like this.
But let me ask you, okay, you say you felt persecuted.
Yeah.
Is that why Cambodia?
Cambodia was a good place for asylum. Cambodia was a good place for us to find a new life, for us to live, for us not to have these situations. We looked at it, we looked at citizenship. We entered Cambodia legally. We didn't do anything illegal. We did everything you were supposed to do to come into a new country and try to nationalize or to get asylum there.
Okay, and you were trying to get asylum because you felt persecuted,
Absolutely.
and were you afraid
Yes, absolutely, both.
for your safety?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, at the time, right before we left and flew out, there was a black pickup truck that had started to park right outside our house. And it would move on the street, but it was always there. One day, I went to the window, me and Nina were cooking in the kitchen, and this black truck is parked right outside our kitchen window. Whenever he saw us, he left. But it was definitely a man, and it was nobody we knew personally, and somebody that shouldn't have been there.
And did they give you concern?
Absolutely.
So when you went to Cambodia, did you do so out of necessity?
Yes. In our feelings, absolutely.
Oh, and while you were on the leg monitor, I mean, you were trying to work, weren't you?
has worked.
Okay, in fact, did you get a job offer
I did,
while you were on the leg line?
I did,
It was gonna help pay for your legal expenses.
I did, yes.
But what happened with the job?
And I got the job fairly quickly whenever we got out. My resume is really clean. So I got this position with a law firm. He tendered an offer to me, which I accepted. With this leg monitor program, you have to get approval for everything you do. And you heard
When you say approval, you gotta get approval from the judge, right?
I do, yes, anything you do. So I let my attorneys know that I had a job offer. They had to file a motion with a hearing before this judge to get this approved. There's a limited period of time, of course, because I had to start within a certain time range. I had given enough time for me, my start date, to give me like a week or about that, for the judge to give approval for me to do this the right way. The minute the motion was filed, and it was, known by the prosecution, by the court system, that I had a job and that it was with this firm, the offer was rescinded before the hearing could even take place.
Okay. So it was affecting your ability to work.
It would have been, it was an impossibility. Every time I would get an interview or try to get an interview, the time frame for me being able to get to that interview was impossible.
And you didn't think that was a coincidence, did you?
No, I definitely did not.
Is that why you kind of felt like y'all were being persecuted?
Yes, one reason.
As far as, I did wanna. Let me show you what's marked as, may I approach it?
You may.
Thank you. What's marked as defense exhibit number 13. Okay. Is that Charles Beltran?
It is,
And is that the Santa Marta case that he had?
yes.
And does this photo have significance to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much an indicator that he and his people are watching.
Judge Oliver was marked as defense 13.
No objection, Your Honor.
Permission to publish, Your Honor.
Defendant's exhibit 13 is admitted for all purposes, and yes, you may publish.
Again, this is the other Santa Marta emblem, correct?
Yes,
And this is Charles Beltran, right?
yes,
And he's telling you that we're always watching.
yes.
Was that threatening to you?
Very,
Did you believe that he and his people were always watching?
yes,
Is that why you went to Cambodia?
yes,
Is that why you continue to send him money,
yes,
to stay in contact with him?
yes.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. So Ms. Dykes, you said you've been a paralegal for how long?
33 years.
33 years, and all in negotiations, right?
No, not all in negotiation. I've done personal injury. I'm primarily a litigation paralegal, so negotiation is not something I've always done.
Well, you did negotiations here in Dallas, didn't you?
I did for part of the time that I was with that firm.
And you're no stranger to the courtroom. I mean, you know how things work. I mean, you've been in the courtroom in your job for a long time, is that right?
Yes,
And the soft-spoken Ms. Dykes that you are today, I mean, as far as negotiation, you're negotiating big cases. These aren't like little baby cases. I mean, these are important things, right?
technically, I didn't negotiate the big cases. I worked the big cases as far as litigation aspects go.
Okay, but you're talking to attorneys, you're talking to other negotiators, you're talking to companies about, their money and things like that. Is that right?
Yes,
And you have to be fairly strong in your negotiations to get the job done. And you did get the job done, didn't you?
You have to know the files.
Yeah, but you have to be strong in your negotiations to get the job done, right? You can't just fall over at the first offer and say, okay, I give up, right? You have to know what you're doing and you have to be strong.
I think you have to be clear and concise.
Okay. And as far as, again, you know enough about the legal field, you know enough about, what goes on in a courtroom to kind of understand some of the procedures, right?
I do.
Okay. So, just a minute, I mean, you mentioned all these threatening things, and you were advised if there was anything that went wrong or anything else like that, you could either talk to Julian LaPere, your ELM person, and you could talk to the judge about what was going on, and you never did that, did you?
No,
Okay, so you never told him about any of these issues that you had going on supposedly during your time on ELM, right? You're a smart enough woman to know you could have told them any of that, and they would have done whatever they could to make you feel better, right?
which issues are you speaking of?
I'm talking about this truck that's outside. I'm talking about the people supposedly harassing you. You could have talked to the judge about that, right?
I feel that would have probably been ineffective.
But you didn't try, did you?
No,
And you didn't tell Miss LaPere about any of that, did you?
no, she knew about the work problems.
Okay. And that was it, right? That was the only problem that you really talked to her about, right?
Yes,
And you're making this jury believe, I think, that you think the prosecution had something to do with you not getting the job, right?
I do believe that.
Okay, and you understand, Ms. Dux, we don't have that kind of time. I mean, if you don't know that, we don't have that kind of time.
I don't know what kind of time you have and you don't, ma'am, honestly.
Now, as far as Ms. LaPere is concerned, she was here earlier. Your counsel had a opportunity to ask her questions about that situation, didn't he?
He did.
Okay, and Ms. LaPere, she didn't say anything about notifying or having to notify the prosecution or the court at every request that you make, right?
She did go over what you can and can't do while you're on ELN. She also did, I believe, testify to the fact that you had to have approval to work.
Okay. Now, I'm looking through all this stuff here, and you were talking about all these people that are harassing you and causing problems, and even before, back in 2020, before this incident happened, all these terrible things that happened to you, and I can't seem to find a police report where you reported this stuff. You didn't do that, did you?
Where I reported what?
These problems that you were having, these people that are harassing you, these calls that you're getting. You didn't report any of that to the police, did you?
To be frank, ma'am, I don't trust police at this point in my life.
Well, at that time, you had no reason to, did you?
In 20?
Before you even knew that there was that people were, that the police were looking for you and trying to contact you, you had no reason to distrust police at that time.
The incidents that we're speaking of started to happen when the FBI agent showed up at the door on 10/13.
And there was nothing about that contact that would make you distrust police at that time, was it?
At the time that they were there,
At the time that the FBI contacted you on October 15th, you had no reason to distrust police, did
the
you?
text that night that I got from the gentleman claiming to be an FBI officer is pretty alarming. If he was an FBI officer, which I have no idea of knowing whether he was or not, that makes you start to distrust.
Well, you just stated on direct that you asked for a picture of his badge and he didn't send you one.
He
And
didn't,
so at that point, I mean, you knew he wasn't legit, right?
not really, like.
Okay, I mean, Taylor Page rang your doorbell, stood in front of the Ring camera, you've seen that, that's how Ring cameras work. When the doorbell rings, you have an app on your phone and you can see that video, right?
No, I never saw the ad, I've never
Now I'm asking you, is that how
saw
the Ring camera works?
I didn't have the app, and it was Chuck's Ring camera, so I didn't have any of that.
So, speaking of Chuck, you mentioned, I mean, you made it a point right off the bat to talk about how violent he was. Again, I'm looking through all of this stuff, And I don't see one police report that you called in on Chuck the entire time that you all lived together. You didn't do that, did you?
I would not have, I would not dare to have done that. He is not the kind of man you make a police report on and have anything come of that that's good.
Okay, so he's not the kind of man, I mean, if he does something in your home that you invited him into, that you put him up in, that you bought him all that equipment, that you bought him that car, that you paid for all his shoes and his clothing and things like that, he's not the kind of man that you could call and report him to the police and he get arrested and be out of your life. That's how simple it was, right?
It was not that simple. Chuck was not the kind
Now,
of
you
guy.
talk about Chuck's friends, Dax, Freddie, you know them, right?
I do know them too.
They've been to your house plenty of times, right?
They have.
Okay, and, I mean, they talked about how everybody knew that you were in a relationship with Chuck, right? They talked about that.
They said that, yes.
Okay, and so it was common knowledge that this arrangement between you and Chuck really didn't have much at all to do with his rap career, if anything, because we saw Defense Exhibit 7. And any woman that is trying to save for retirement and save up and make smart financial decisions is not gonna feed money into that man and that kind of rap and that kind of video after she saw what was produced. That doesn't make any sense, does it?
His first productions out of Austin, as I had said, were
Ma'am,
not-
I'm asking about this
Judge,
production.
ask that she be allowed to answer the question. I mean, I understand it on cross, but
Sustained, please allow the witness to answer the question.
And my question to you is, after seeing what he produced on Defendant's Exhibit 7, Picture Me This, where the lyrics are dickety dick and lickety lick, no woman trying to save for retirement is going to continue to invest in that, correct? That's my question to you.
They may, if there's a potential for improvement, if there's a potential for it to change, to reflect what the actual work that was done before is produced, then yes, they might.
But you're trying to save for retirement, aren't you?
I'm trying to build an income stream that would sustain me through later years.
Now, as far as the court proceedings go, I mean, you bonded out in, I believe, May of 2021, is that right?
Yes,
Okay, and Nina got out first, and then you got out, and then you all were able to get a nice little house together and live together on ELM. And it wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad, was it?
no, it's pretty bad.
Okay, and looking at the past slips, just a minute, Your Honor, I apologize. And I'll put these in order, Ms. Dykes, but looking at the past slips, the very first time, Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Just to refresh your recollection of that, I'm showing what's been marked states 398 through 402, and it starts with 402. That's your signature right there, is that correct?
Yes.
If you'll just look through each of those, and do those look like the past slips in your case from the time you bonded out to the time you fled to Cambodia?
Yes.
Now, Your Honor, state offer states 398 through 402 for all purposes.
No objection, Judge.
Starting in September,
Hold on, okay.
oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
398 through 402
Yes, Your Honor.
are admitted for all purposes.
Okay, permission to publish.
You may.
Looking at states 402, this is September 21st. You signed that pass slip and it just says discovery needed, right?
Mhm.
You were here
You
for,
have to answer that one.
Yes.
you didn't talk to anybody, any prosecutors, you didn't have to go to the courtroom, you just talked to your attorney and you left, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. States 398, October 1st, 2021, your signature's not even there, is it?
No,
You didn't have to even show up in court, right?
I don't think so. I don't recall exactly, but I don't think so.
Okay, but you would have signed it if you had to show up, right?
Possibly.
Okay, October 29th, 2021, again, your signature's not there, right?
Or, yes.
So, you didn't sign that pass slip either. November 29th, 2021, you didn't sign that pass slip, and that's in states 400.
Yes.
And then, on December 29th, 2021, you're actually in Cambodia at this time, right?
No, that's November 29th, 2021.
Okay, but it's reset to, December 29th, 2021, is that correct?
It was reset to that day. The day of that signature was November 29th, 2021.
Okay, and you didn't have to sign that day either, right?
No,
So you're not having to spend any time up here,
no.
okay? Chuck has a lot of tattoos, doesn't he?
Yes.
In fact, the one that's right there on your wrist, if you'll show that to the jury, please, Your Honor, may Ms. Dykes stand up and present to her tattoo to the jury?
Well, she may stand up where she is and
Okay.
show her tattoo.
And we're talking about the one right there on your wrist, right? This one right there.
Right.
You're aware that Chuck has that same tattoo, doesn't he?
He does. Yes, he does.
Okay. So you are a 57-year-old woman investing in a rapper's career. You don't have any personal relationship at all, but you get a matching tattoo.
The tattoo is actually the logo for the business that I started for him, that I'm invested in, math class. That's what the tattoo is. And it's the logo for that.
Now, you and Nina are really close, aren't you?
Yes,
You know pretty much everything about each other, right?
yes, I would think.
She talked to you while she was in Pennsylvania.
We've consistently kept a relationship for 16 years.
Okay, so she talks. You guys talk all the time.
We do.
Now, you mentioned that Bill didn't live there, but if Bill didn't live in Pennsylvania, why is he keeping Halloween decorations there? That doesn't make any sense, does it?
No, that's not exactly what I said. They had a house together in Staten Island where they actually resided. This house is a house where they were repairing the house to sell it as a couple or to live in it as they chose to do. They did have personal property there from both of them.
This Miss Scarpa just made up this fact that you guys knelt there, right?
Miss Scarpa had said what she said for whatever reason she did, but it was not true.
Okay. And Olivia Martinez, I almost said Rodriguez again. Olivia Martinez, she was somebody that you were training, right?
She was someone I trained, yes.
And you guys kept the same office, didn't you?
She was put into my office so that I could train her.
Okay, so you guys shared an office, didn't you?
Yes,
And as anybody that shares an office, you guys get in personal conversations, right?
Olivia liked to listen to my phone calls. As far as personal
Objection,
conversation stuff, no.
non-responsive, Your Honor.
If you could sustain, you need to listen to the specific question and answer that specific question if you can. If you don't know, then just say you don't know. You may proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Dykes, being in the same office with someone, you get in some personal conversations, don't you?
Not always, no,
Okay, but you did have some personal conversations with Olivia, didn't you?
about certain things.
And, you talked to her about Chuck sometimes, right?
Honestly, no, I didn't talk to Olivia about Chuck.
You never talked to her about Chuck,
No,
okay? You never talked to her about Nina either, did you?
no, actually Nina, she met coming into the office. Nina used to come and sit with me in the office.
Okay, and you know that she testified that you all had several personal conversations at work. You recall that conversation,
I
right?
remember her testimony.
Okay, so there's a person number 2 that's lying, right?
Seems to be Olivia had some thoughts that weren't exactly correct.
Okay, and, Kat De Leon, she's a hairdresser. You went to her for years, didn't you?
I did.
And you guys were close, weren't you?
No, she was my hairdresser.
Okay, and as a hairdresser, you know the gig. I mean, you stick with the same hairdresser for a while. They know your styles, they know your fashions, they know the things you like, right?
Should, yes.
Okay, and she was a good hairdresser, wasn't she?
She was good with color, yes.
Okay, and she was good with cuts too, wasn't she?
Not so much,
Then why'd you keep going?
because she was good with color.
Okay, but she still cut your hair too, didn't she?
She did, yes.
Okay, and she was so good that you took Chelsea there too, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't have any personal conversations with Kat either, did you?
We did have personal conversations.
So
She
you
did.
told her about Chuck.
I did tell her that Chuck was there in the house, yes.
Okay, and you told her about you talked about him all the time, didn't you?
No, not all the time.
You talked about him frequently to her, didn't you?
When she asked, I answered her.
And of course, if he was this mean, awful, violent person, you could have told her, you would have told her that.
Not necessarily.
But you told her about the sex, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
You didn't tell her anything about you guys having any kind of sexual relationship.
No, I didn't, because that wouldn't be true.
Nina spent quite a bit of time after Bill died in Pennsylvania by herself, right?
I don't remember exactly how long she was there. She first, when Bill died, she was in Pennsylvania, yes.
Okay, so that was November. You guys actually started taking trips and things together on a fairly regular basis in maybe the summer of 2019. Does that sound about right?
No, I think that's too soon.
October 2019?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, and then he passes in, and that's when you guys really kind of started going from being best friends to taking this to a different level, right?
Nina and I still to this day are best friends, so the commitment to actually marry didn't come until April or May.
I'm not talking about marriage, Ms. Dykes. I'm talking about where you all start discussing and making a decision that this isn't just a best friend buddy situation, that we're going to be in a different type of relationship. That happened around October 2019, is that right?
I think that's way too soon.
Okay.
It
But
wasn't
if you
very-
told Kat De Leon that it was October 2019, that's mistaken?
I think Kat's probably off on that, because we really didn't start even remotely thinking about anything like that until 20.
Bill passes in 2019, is that correct?
I really don't remember, I think so.
November 2019, right?
I believe so.
And you and Lisa, you and Nina, y'all start getting closer and closer. Is that fair to say?
Yes, she was going through a lot of things. I mean, we were already extremely, extremely close, but her suffering from Bill dying was pretty extraordinary, so yes,
Okay, and you knew about some of her relationships too, is that right?
I did.
You knew that she was having a relationship with a guy in Pennsylvania. I can't recall his name, but you remember that she was having a relationship with a guy in Pennsylvania.
No, she didn't really have a relationship with anybody in Pennsylvania. She
You
saw somebody maybe in Pennsylvania, but not a relationship.
Okay, relationship might be a little more than what it was, but she was texting the guy and she saw a guy and they had sex while she was in Pennsylvania. Is that,
I think so, yes.
and, you know that, I mean, she texted this guy and she told that guy all about you, her fiance, and all about Chuck the third.
I don't know, I never saw anything like that.
It was clear that you guys were open about what the deal was. You and Nina were married and Chuck was your guy.
No, he wasn't.
Now, as far as Kyle's concerned, Kyle lives here in Dallas, doesn't he?
Yes,
And he was the, I guess, manager of the bar. Is that
Yes.
right?
yes,
On premise.
yes,
And he actually hired Chuck. Is that right?
yes.
And Dax also worked there. Is that correct?
Dax was working as a bouncer at that time.
And Chuck was a doorman.
Yeah, well, he was a bouncer too. They were both working the same position.
That's how you met Chuck, through your son Kyle. Is that correct?
Yes,
You mentioned to the jury that Chuck got, and Kyle cares a whole lot about you, doesn't he?
I believe so, yes.
I mean, you guys still to this day, you all talk all the time, right?
We do.
And he'll pretty much do anything for you. Is that correct?
I don't know, I haven't got any new clothes for court yet, so I can't really say that. No.
Well, that's because he'd have to appear here in the court building to get you those clothes, right?
That's not true.
I mean, you told him to stay away, didn't you?
No,
You didn't tell him to stay away?
no. Well, I had like not wanted him to be up here just because of the risk for him, the danger of being around other people.
Your Honor, may we approach?
You may. All right, we're gonna take a 5-minute break, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
All rise.
Oh, you may be seated.
Yeah, I can do that. But thank you.
You wanna just go ahead and break for the day? And we were gonna break before anyway for her child's, exclusive, and so that I would like to. Okay. I'm so sorry. It's okay. I'm so sorry. All right, I'm gonna let the jury know that, we've had death in our community and that we're breaking for the day. Can you? If it's okay with the bailiff, that's his line. Yes, guys, when we started back up and you began your testimony, we're not on the record. We all received news that, our colleague and someone that is, your attorney's best friend, has passed away.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
And that is, Craig Watkins. So, we're just gonna break for the day, and then we'll figure out what we're gonna do, okay?
Okay.
But you can stand down and, sit here and we'll figure out what we're gonna do. here off the record, what time, you,
No. Show that.
you wanna do 9:30?
No, yeah, no, 9:30.
All right, but we're done for the day. All right, I'm gonna let the jury know that we've had a death in our community.
Yes, 9:30. I know. I wonder how long had he known? They just text him. Somebody just texted. You could tell.
Well,
I was-
I guess it heard the noise, it was kind of starting to blow up around when Stella
Yeah.
heard. And then Worsley's like, confirmed by DPD. So I was thinking, I would, I gotta have to tell him.
Yeah.
I was hoping we'd get through her testimony, but it didn't.
So when y'all came sidebar, he knew. He just let it go.
Well, he was over there, just.
Yeah, I
Somebody
know. I could too. That's what I was thinking too. I was like, oh,
And I guess he was not at home, I mean, that's
I know.
I just told the jury that we had a death in our legal community and somebody that y'all know, great walk in, our first action.
Thank you.
District attorney in Dallas, and that he was a public defender when I was a big prosecutor, and he and I started together in the DA's office. I mean, we all knew each other.
Yeah.
We've all known each other, but he had such a special, I didn't tell him about that. Thank you. Oh my goodness, what is it? All right, I'm gonna stop screaming now, so we can,
All right, thank you, brother.
we're on this, all right. Well, I will email a charge later. I'm gonna stay and work